In this lesson presentation, we're going to focus on Elizabeth Cady Stanton and Sojourner Truth and talk about how you can evaluate their speeches in order to draw some conclusions. So first, let's talk about Elizabeth Cady Stanton. She was an American social activist, an abolitionist, and a leading figure in the early women's rights movement. So she was a social activist and an abolitionist. That means an abolitionist that she was fighting to abolish slavery, but she also became a leading figure in the early women's rights movement. And in fact, her Declaration of Sentiments, which was presented at the first Women's Rights Convention, which was held in 1848 in Seneca Falls, New York, is often credited with initiating the first organized women's rights and women's suffrage movements in the United States. So she was advocating for women's rights in general, but she was also advocating for women's suffrage, and that's one of our vocabulary words, so you know that suffrage means the right to vote, and that's really what she was known as. So as you read her speech, we're going to ask you to draw some conclusions about that time in history. What can you conclude based on the details of her speech and draw some conclusions about American history at that time? Next is Sojourner Truth. She was born a slave, but she escaped with her infant daughter to freedom in 1826. Later, she went to court to recover her son, and she became the first black woman to win such a case against a white man. And so as you read her speech, think about what conclusions you can draw about her life. As you read the famous speeches these women made, I want you to think about what you can take away from them. So this is where we're going to ask you to infer a conclusion. Think about how this can relate to your life, what examples for your life you can bring not only to their words, but what you can take from their words and apply to your life. What can you learn from these two women? And ask yourself, did they change outcomes in their own lives by their actions?